Welcome to the year 2019. God has been good to us, and we have seen His grace and His mercy to see another year. Well, we did a countdown 50 days before 2019, but we're not going to just leave you. I want you to allow me to be your tour guide in this new year for the first 40 days. It is said that it takes 21 days to establish a new habit. Well, we're going to go a little further than 21 days. For the first 40 days, we're going to spend time in the book of Joshua extensively because it is a battle plan on how to take the promises that God has made unto us. So I want you to stay with us, and we're going to start in the book of Joshua, starting in chapter 1. And we're not just going to study the book of Joshua this year. We're going to walk it out. We're going to live it out. We expect, and I expect for you to expect, that as we're studying the book of Joshua, you start seeing the manifestations in your life. And those promises that God has promised us begin to take shape and come to fruition in your life. I want you to stay with us as we now go into our study for the first 40 days of this year, 2019. Stay with us for the first 40 days. God bless you.
Welcome to the Words to Empower podcast, featuring Bishop Frank Stewart, pastor of the Acts Ministry in Conway and North Little Rock. And now, Pastor Stewart.
Welcome back to your Acts Ministry podcast as we are studying the book of Joshua, because the book of Joshua is a blueprint for receiving or taking what God has given unto us. He's already given it to us. We already got the deed to it, but we got to take it, and that's the only way we're going to get it. So I want you to look at that and think about that. But we're talking about in this chapter 1, everything is focused around a few words in chapter 1 of the book of Joshua. And Joshua instructions that he's given, the instruction that is given to Joshua in chapter 1 is to combat something that is very, very deep rooted in him. And that thing is fear. And I believe there's areas in our lives where fear is dominant. And when fear dominates in an area, it cheats and it robs. It is one of the things that the thief used to steal, kill, and destroy. And I think he steals by using fear. He used fear on us to steal things from us out of our lives. And if we don't deal with it, it will destroy. It destroy our souls, and it will kill our physical bodies. So fear will impact you on every level of your existence. That is, it will attack you in your physical body, it will attack you in your emotions, and it will attack you in your soul. Think about it. Satan says he come to steal, kill, and destroy. Steal physically, steal from us physically, kill us physically, and destroy that eternal soul. When we look at chapter 1, and I'm going to show it to you in the book of Joshua, when you look at chapter 1, you look at the amount of encouragement that God gives to Joshua the leader. Just look at it. How many times God tell him, that is written to Joshua, to be strong and to be of good courage. Let's just walk through that, because God knows us. And that's the one thing about getting the right word. Not just a word that is for where we are now, the superficial stuff, but a word that we need. That's why praying in tongues is so important, because then we're praying the word that is really needed. God is seeing where we are, and the Holy Spirit is attacking that area in our lives that need to be attacked. So watch this. Watch this in the book of Joshua, chapter 1. If you focus on that with me, you're going to see how he encourages Joshua. He tells Joshua in verse number 3 that wherever he placed his foot, he was going to give it to him. Now, you got to have enough courage, and you got to fight back fear to be able to put your foot there. You can have it, but you got to put your foot there. And we know that we've already talked about it was what God had given him. But then he says something else to encourage Joshua. He says that, as I said unto Moses, as I told Moses, the way I was with Moses, the way I'm going to be with you. And that's what he says to Joshua in verse 5. He says, there shall not any man be able to stand before thee all the days of your life. As I was with Moses, so I will be with thee. I will not fail thee nor forsake thee. Listen to that. God telling Joshua, I'm not going to fail you, and I'm not going to forsake you. That is very, very important. He's encouraging the leader because Moses is gone. Moses is dead. Joshua's taken over. And God knows what is inside of Joshua. He knows what's inside of all of us. And that's why to deal with fear is very important. Then he says in verse 6 to Joshua, be strong and of a good courage. So watch that, strong and courageous. Now we know those are anonyms for fear, strong and courageous. Because if you're fearful, you're not going to be strong, you're not going to be courageous. He goes back, again he comes in verse 7. Only be thou strong and very courageous. You see that? He says it again in verse number 7. And not just that, he goes in verse 9. He says, be strong and of a good courage. Be not afraid, neither be thou dismayed. So that's what we focus on. Again, he says to Joshua, be strong, good courage, in verse 9. Then he adds, don't be afraid and don't be dismayed. And you would think that that is enough encouragement, but the Lord comes right back. He comes right back again. And as he's dealing with Joshua, he says this again. He says to him in verse number 18, the last verse in chapter 1.
Stay tuned for more of Frank Stewart. And now for some special announcements.
Thanks for partnering with the Acts Ministries. We value your service and your donations. That's why we've made it easy to make contributions to support our ministry. Simply go to your web browser and click the search bar and type in actsministriesonline.org. Then click Donate Online. It's really that easy. For mobile giving, text the amount you wish to donate to 501-302-4242. That's Simple Give.
And now, more of Pastor Frank Stewart.
He says, the people says to Joshua, whosoever he be that does rebel against thy commandment, and will not hearken unto your words, and all that thou commandest him, he shall be put to death. Only be strong and of a good courage. Brothers and sisters, he started in the book of Deuteronomy, encouraging them, and it kept on repeating. Now let me say this. When you get to God repeating himself, it is a big deal. It is a major deal. And I want you to understand that. Because if you miss that, you miss the importance of God saying it the second time, or the third time, the fourth time. It's a big deal. Why? Because throughout all eternity, God never repeated himself. Think about that. He spoke in creation and said, let it be, one time. One time. That's it. He told the apple tree to bring forth. About 6,000 years later, it's still bringing forth apples. The angels, they sinned one time. They were put out of heaven for all eternity. One time. See, the one thing we don't understand is that anytime God tells us something more than once, you've experienced incredible grace in your life. God is not used to repeating himself. He only started repeating himself when he came to us. When he got to man, then God, because of his grace and his mercy, he repeats himself because he loves us just that much. So it's a big deal when God repeats himself. And here again, he is telling him to be strong, be very courageous. And he is telling him not to be fearful or dismayed. Don't worry. Don't worry. Now, when we see all of this information that has been given concerning Joshua and everything that's been said about be strong, good courage, let me take you to an event later on in the book of Joshua that I believe will help explain why there was so much encouragement given unto Joshua. I told you on yesterday that fear is Satan's ultimate weapon. It was fear that caused Abraham to lie. Remember what the Bible, what Abraham told Sarah to say, that she was his sister. It was fear that caused him to do that, because he was afraid they was going to kill him. He lied. It was fear that opened the gate for what happened to Job. Remember what Job said, that which I feared the most, what I've been afraid of, has happened to me. That's secret, deep-rooted fear. Deep-rooted fear. And God knew being who God is, that dealing with Joshua, he had to solidify him in this area, build him up in this area, because there are some deep-rooted things that are going on, as it is with all of us. Fear will manifest itself. And when it manifests from being invisible, it becomes visible. Just like the Word was made flesh, fear will become flesh. Fear will manifest itself. And it will manifest itself as in sickness and disease and doubt and unbelief and lying and sinning. Fear will manifest itself. You got to understand that. So let's look at Joshua. Let's look at why it was so necessary for God to talk to him and give him this encouragement. In Joshua chapter 7, I'm moving a few years over in the book, and I'm moving to chapter 7 and verse 5. And I'm going to move to a battle that Joshua had with the men of Ai. And then it's spelled just like it sounds, A-N-I, Ai. Now, they had just conquered a huge city, Jericho. Walls fell down. They marched around the city 7 times, and on the 7th day, they marched around 7 times. So when you look at that, 13 times in all those 7 days. But there's a battle here that they should have never lost. I want you to really get that in your spirit. There's a battle that is going to happen in Joshua's life that they should have never lost. And what fear will do, fear will cause you to lose battles that you should have never lost. And you'll be scratching your head and you'll be wondering, how did I lose that battle? Or how did that happen to me? Deep-rooted fear. I want you to see this. So they go against Ai, very small place. Very small. They didn't even take their whole army. They just said, let's take a few men and go and defeat it because they were such a small city. Well, they lost. And I want to pick up right here during the time, or at verse 5 in Joshua 7, describing what happened as they attacked Ai. The Bible says in verse 5, and the men of Ai struck down about 36 men, for they chased them from before the gate as far as Shebarim, and struck them down on the descent. Therefore the hearts of the people melted and became like water. Then Joshua tore his clothes and fell to the earth on his face before the ark of the Lord until evening, he and the elders of Israel, and they put dust on their heads. And Joshua said, alas, Lord God, why have you brought this people over this Jordan at all, to deliver us into the hand of the Amorites, to destroy us? Oh, that we had been content and dwelled on the other side of the Jordan. O Lord, what shall I say when Israel turns its back before its enemy? For the Canaanites and all the inhabitants of the land will hear it and surround us and cut off our name from the earth. Then what will you do for your great name? So the Lord said to Joshua, get up. Get up. Why do you lie thus on your face? Israel has sinned. Now, it's so important that you hear what Joshua says. When they lose the battle, it's almost, he had a deep-rooted fear that something bad was going to happen. Just listen to his words. Listen to his words. He says, if they had stayed on the other side of the Jordan. Now, if they stayed on the other side, they would have been very, very crowded. It wasn't the promised land that God had promised them. But Joshua is looking at this thing, and he's saying, you know what? We should never try to conquer everything. Now, mind you, God had told them that they was going to conquer it. God had told them, wherever you place your foot, I'm going to give it to you, because I've already given it to you. It's part of your inheritance. And he says, oh, that we had been content and dwell on the other side of the Jordan. Oh, that we would have taken less. Oh, if we'd have just been happy being cramped and not having more than enough. If we'd have just been satisfied with having not enough. I mean, just think about that. Now, this is the mindset. If we'd have been happy with not enough, but we would have been safe. We would have been safe. Fear. Hear fear here. Hear fear. We would have been safe. We'd have been all cramped up. We'd have had a whole nation just in that little area, but we would have been safe if we'd have been content. See, fear will make you content where God doesn't want you to be content. Fear will make you content in a place that has no room for growth, no space for increase. That's why the psalmist says, God has enlarged me. He's enlarged my steps. He's enlarged me. God's not a God of not enough. He's a God of more than enough. He's not a God of just enough. He's a God of more than enough. Joshua said, I wish we had been content. Something had happened. Here is Joshua on his face, tore his clothes. All the leadership is on their face. Joshua's leading them, and God says to Joshua, get up. And God says to Joshua, why are you on your face? I want you to just think about that. God is asking Joshua, why are you going through all of this? Joshua's going through all of this because he feared that God had failed. He was afraid that God had failed. And all this stuff that was deep rooted in him began to come out through his mouth. God says God doesn't honor this sacrifice and all this stuff that he's doing. The crying out, the being on his face, the sackcloth and ashes. This is not something God honors. God says to him, get up. Then God says, why are you on your face? Why are you on your face like I have failed? Or like something out of the ordinary has happened that God cannot deliver. He says to him, y'all messed up. Israel has sinned. What a lesson here. What a lesson that when failure comes in, it says to us, not that God is wrong, not that God can't do it, but it is apparent that we missed something. We missed something. We disobeyed. Something happened because God cannot lie. Not will not, cannot. So since God cannot lie, it's something that we overlook. I want you to stay with us because we're getting this foundation in the month of January. We're going to get a foundation, and we're going to deal with Satan's number one weapon. And if we can do that, we're going to see incredible results. And wherever we place our foot within the boundaries that God has given us, he says it's going to be yours. In 2019, you're going to receive it. Stay with us.
For mobile giving, text the amount you wish to donate to 501-302-4242.
The Acts Church in North Little Rock is located at 1224 Franklin Street. Morning Glory begins at 8 a.m. on Sunday mornings. Sunday School begins at 8:30 a.m. And for a powerful word, join us at 9:30 a.m. for our morning worship service. Bible study is each Wednesday at 6:30 p.m. At our Conway location, Morning Glory begins at 10 a.m. Sunday School begins at 10:30 a.m. Worship service begins at 11:30 a.m. On Thursday, our Bible class begins at 6:30 p.m. For more information, go to actsministriesonline.org or give us a call at 501-329-2055.
Thank you for tuning in to the Acts Ministry Podcast. The Acts Church is located at 1423 England Street in Conway and 1224 Franklin Street in North Little Rock, Arkansas. Tune in each day to hear an inspiring word from Pastor Frank Stewart.
Well, friends, that's all of the Acts Ministry Podcast for today. Feel free to go back and revisit and listen to any of the previous podcasts. Until tomorrow, I want you to know, if you're not having church when you leave church, you are not having church. God bless you.